Okay, we should be going live now. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the quarantine sessions. We are here once again for a very, very exciting session. We have a super star guest today. He is a business developer in one of Egypt's most successful startups today, Robusta. His name is Hussein Mohieldin. Hussein, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks a lot, Valentina, and thanks a lot for all the work you guys are doing to keep everyone engaged and active and keep the momentum.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So we're here to talk about a topic that is crucial for startups today, for any business owner, not just startups, basically, which is e-commerce. How to add e-commerce to your startup, whether it is that you were selling products before or you want to add a new revenue stream. So Hussein is going to introduce us a little bit on the first steps that any entrepreneur or any business should take when deciding to add e-commerce. So I guess that's my first question, Hussein. What is the first step you should take if you want to add e-commerce?
I think e-commerce is like any other business. So basically you look at three different things. So people, process, and technology. So if I look at e-commerce, I definitely look first at the people. What kind of leadership do I have that can take this forward? Who on my team understands the different topics that it takes to launch a successful e-commerce business and so on? Because this is critical. Unless I have this capacity, then whatever I do will not be managed well. And then, so probably once I have this, the second step would be looking at my processes. What needs to change, what needs to, how to do everything in the business, because this reflects in the customer experience side. And customer experience for e-commerce is critical because in e-commerce, the cost of switching is relatively low. Customers, they do have very high expectations because in e-commerce, a customer would compare a startup to Amazon alike, and they expect the same performance, same care for customers and logistics and so on. And then the third would be the technology.
Right. So three very important elements, right? But what is the actual first step? Like, where do you actually start? Do you start with a template? Do you recommend creating, sort of having a team on board to design it, to launch it, to create the infrastructure? What is, in terms of the tech platform, right? What do you suggest?
Yeah, so for the tech platform, I think it would be different from one startup to another, depending on what they're doing. So basically, they need to start looking at their own business. For example, if they're selling products, how many SKUs do they have? How many transactions do they expect per day? What kind of seasonality do they expect for their product? I do a benchmarking of other competitors on the market and what kind of experience they have and so on. And then based on this kind of information, they look at different platforms. So there are obviously some platforms that are easier to use or easier to roll out, which would be recommended for an MVP for a startup. So everyone probably knows about things like Shopify, e-commerce, and so on. And there is also things that for more mature startups, so things like Magento, which becomes much more scalable. You get better performance. You get easier integrations with the ERP systems, with the CRM, and so on, things like this. So there is no one size fits all. It depends on the startup, what exactly are they selling. And in many cases for startups, they are attempting to do something no one has done before. So in some cases, they need to build some custom workflows. So they might end up needing to build their own platform. But of course, the recommendation is always to favor speed over anything else. So if building their own platform means that they will waste 6 months before they roll out to the customers, then definitely it's better to go out faster to the market and then improve from this as they go.
Right. Hussein, you're giving us so much condensed information, right? You mentioned Shopify, you mentioned other platforms. Which are the main ones an entrepreneur should consider when looking at the market?
So if you look at the numbers, the top 4 e-commerce platforms are Shopify, WooCommerce, Magento, and OpenCart. So those 4 combined constitute over 70% of the e-commerce market. And then there are others in the 30%. But still, it depends on the startup because right now we're speaking on a very, very general scale. Again, there is no one size fits all, but generally speaking, if someone is selling or a startup is selling a product, then usually Shopify, for example, is one of the easiest that can get started up from the ground. And then the second level of complexity that offers a little bit more features would be something like WooCommerce. So in most of the cases, Shopify and WooCommerce would perform well in startups selling products. But again, there are other startups that are selling services, for example, that will need different options.
Right. We have a question from Salah. He's asking, is it better to start from scratch or use a platform like Magento? The issue of customization. So it kind of rephrases what we were just discussing, right? Mm-hmm. In terms of customizations, what would you recommend? And can you tell us a little bit, what is the cost? What is the average cost in time frame if you do it on your own?
Yeah. Basically, regarding the last question for building something from scratch, I would advise to avoid this in the beginning for a startup, because this requires lots of focus, and this drags a lot of the attention of the startup on focusing on the tech product and solving bugs and issues and building user experience and so on, and it's somehow distracting from their core market. So they should be more focused on the customers, more on the transactions and so on. So I would advise that in the first MVP, they don't build something from scratch. However, they need to deal with a platform they are comfortable with, because again, they will need to do some customizations and so on. As we talked, like experience becomes critical. Yeah, that's right.
Right. Ahmed Ayad is asking, do you think in Egypt, the government should establish a platform like Ma'roof in KSA to protect the consumers?
I'm not sure what do they mean by protect the consumer, but I think the government, like, there are lots of initiatives happening. So in Egypt, the general authority for customer protection is very active, online and offline equally, and there are lots of policies that have already been on track, like things to protect the privacy or the security of the consumers and so on. But those are more still on the policy side, and it will take like a little bit for them to be activated. But again, it's more or less the same everywhere. So most of the countries, these are also somehow new policies.
Right. Thank you, Ahmed. So can any business create an e-commerce platform? Let's say you sell services, particularly I'm thinking, for example, there's lots of entrepreneurs in our community that are, they have their own community. So they offer services that usually depend on a venue, on a location, right? Can those kind of services become sort of online, and can they be sold through e-commerce? Can an online course, for example, be sold through e-commerce?
Online what? Online course?
An online course, yeah. If we talk about EdTech, for example.
Yeah, definitely. I think so. I think more or less what we're living right now is whoever cannot deliver their service online are suffering, and they need to pivot one way or another. So everyone needs to think about this, and there are lots of examples around. So there are startups who are even using online or digital to sell you services for your home. Someone to fix your a carpenter, or someone to fix your electricity and so on, like the Khidma. I've seen some pivots, like for example, Al Maqar, they're a co-working space, and when this happened, so no, actually they're closed, but they established an online store to help you work better at home. So they have an online store that helps you get your equipment, get your coffee in place, get your productivity tools and so on. So I think, yes, definitely every startup right now needs to think about pivoting online if they are not already, or at least making their operations and customer engagement digital.
Right. Yeah, we have a comment from Salah saying everyone is going digital with the crisis, right? Exactly.
Yeah.
Now the question is, there's so many. Sorry, say again.
Whether we like it or not, yeah, we're going.
Exactly. Now, I have another question. There's so many marketplaces that are already out there that have sort of the, the inflow of customers. They're sort of ready to go, right? So what is the advantage of creating your own e-commerce platform versus joining a marketplace, having your products at a marketplace, such as Amazon, for example, or Souk? Yeah, what is sort of the pros and cons that you see there?
Yeah. So basically, going on a marketplace definitely like helps you get online faster. It abstracts lots of the details, like they take care of some aspects of the logistics, they take care of some aspects of the marketing. They already have users coming in, thousands of users, so you're not starting from ground. However, this cannot be your only channel for long because it's still a channel that's owned by someone else. So it's a matter of today they like you, you get good business. Tomorrow they like the competition. You start having difficulties. So you need to own your channels basically, and you need to own your experience because sooner or later, if all what you're doing is you're selling through someone else, you're not actually owning the customer, and the customer is the most important aspect of the business. And we see it everywhere. So Amazon, for example, they have the strength to negotiate all the terms and so on with their dealers, and then it becomes a matter of how far you can go. But if you own your own platform, it's a little bit more complicated because now you need to take care of your technology, you need to take care of your marketing, and you need to take care of everything. So if you can do this well, you will probably perform well.
Right. Would you say perhaps joining a marketplace is a good first step that then can be sort of moved forward through an own platform, or would you just go directly to building your own platform, no matter how sort of, no matter how basic it is?
Yeah, again, it's always a trade-off. So there is no black or white. It depends on which stage you're at, what's the budget you have, what kind of technical understanding you have on the team. So there is no one decision that works for everyone. But again, for startups, so speed is number one. So if going on a marketplace will help you validate your product market fit, do it. So you need to validate your product market fit. So you don't need to spend like 6 months building your own platform and then you realize that you had an issue with your pricing. So you can validate your pricing going on a marketplace, can validate, like you need to prepare your content, your photography, product details, and so on. So you need to do lots of work that you can do. And then this becomes more of a channel, and then your primary channel becomes your own assets or your own website.
Right. Right. That's a very good point. Ahmed has another question. Could you please recommend what's the best local platform in the MENA region between Expand Card, InnoShop, and Zendo?
So I'm not sure I can like do a comparison right now because I don't have their like everything ready, but generally when you want to compare between your different platforms, so probably look at the features, what do they offer, you look at the pricing, you look at things like the support, what happens if your store is down, what kind of SLA do they have, and so on. You try to look for references, others who tried this before, and you get their experience because this is always the most valuable. You look at the user experience, which one would be seamless for your customers. And if it's a monthly subscription, you might as well do parallel subscriptions and then do sort of A/B testing and see which one of them performs better.
Right, right. So you do recommend A/B testing for this as well? Yeah,
A/B testing in general as a concept is very important for e-commerce. Because you never know. It's different for every customer base. So if you're selling to customers from Egypt, it's different than the customers are in Europe or US or India. So customers are different. Your product is different if you're selling fashion versus you're selling home appliances or you're selling a service. And you can never tell what will work for you unless you try it with your own customer base. So A/B testing, yes, is very important.
Right, right. Salah is asking, what is the best advice to make the transition easier from a platform to your own e-commerce website?
What would make the transition easier?
Yeah.
I I think setting the vision early on that one day you will need to move to your own platform. So you start designing your processes with this in mind. So you don't design your processes that would only fit working with this marketplace or the other one, but you design processes that will work for your business and then do customizations for each channel that you work with. You try to keep everything as modular as possible and as standardized as possible. So for example, if you're doing a product photography, you don't do it only to the specs of this marketplace. You do it so that you can export different formats depending on the requirements of any marketplace later on or your own. You always build whatever you build in mind that one day you understand that this will become only a single channel and not the ultimate one.
Right, right. I was stuck a little bit between in the previous question when you said let's to do some A/B testing. Can you walk us a little bit through how you do that?
So simply explained, A/B testing is basically like if you have 1,000 users, you run experiments, and there are lots of tools that help you run such experiments, analytics tools, and so on. And you start directing parts of the traffic to different targets. So for example, if you have 1,000 users, you will send 500 of those to this homepage and 500 of those to this homepage and see which one performs better. What kind of conversion rate do you get out of each one? And to the level of that at some point, if you want to move a button from the top of the page to the middle of the page, you still need to run A/B tests and see if this affects your conversion positively or negatively. So yes, this is very important. And obviously, like we didn't discuss this, but analytics is key for e-commerce. So you always have to base your decision based on numbers, never on impressions and never on the feedback of friends and family, because they always tend to be supportive. They tend to provide you like, okay, definitely I will buy your service, and they're very supportive. They help, they go on and they buy products and so on. But you really need to understand from the real users, how do they interact with your product?
Right. That's very important as well. So we were saying, first thing, you build your platform. Now you need customers. Now you need the users to drive them in. What are your preferred sort of strategies for funnels?
No, there are different things, again, depending on the product, but basically you need to read and understand about performance marketing. So there are the essentials, like things like search engine optimization or paid advertising over social media and so on. So you need to understand this because every optimization at the beginning of the funnel makes a big difference. And this is mainly the acquisition part. So if you break down the funnel into more or less 4 phases, so you have the acquisition, which is critical, and then you have the engagement. Engagement is subject of the user experience on the platform, the speed of the platform, the product you have, and basically lots of other parameters. And then you have the decision to actually do a purchase, and then the user goes through the checkout process. And if you do have enough data, you try to capitalize on this data to offer like cross-selling opportunities or upselling, and you give product recommendations. If you're buying this, you might also like this, and so on, in order to increase the average basket value. And then there is the transaction part. So ultimately, you want to have a successful transaction, and then you would like to have returning users because it's much less costly to capitalize on existing users for return purchases rather than always acquiring new users and then they never come back. And the ultimate would be like to have your own users become loyal customers and advocates of your own brand and your own products, and they start inviting others to try your product or service. And this is more or less the funnel. I mean, you try to optimize along the funnel. If you do have the capacity within the team to allocate different people to look at different parts of the funnel, because when you dig deeper, you find out lots of parameters that are affecting the conversion rates across the funnel. And in e-commerce, every 0.1% of the conversion matters.
Right. Every 0%, 0.1% of the conversion. I like that. Yeah. When it comes to, so we build the platform, we've talked about the funnel to get the customers. Now comes logistics, delivery. Yeah. How does an entrepreneur that has never run e-commerce, that has never sold online, how do they deal with the logistics? Because I mean, we are seeing today businesses from across many different industries that are, driving and kind of going through this digital transition. But how do you deal with that? Is it, do you hire a company? Do you do it in-house? How do you actually, deliver the products?
Logistics is definitely critical. It could be even more critical than all of the other aspects because, as I said, customers have expectations. I did like a shopping experience on a website a couple of weeks ago. It was very smooth, but then I was very happy. I placed the order and I paid. But then the frustrating experience was when the order did not get delivered on time, and I tried to call the customer service. I don't know when it will be rescheduled and so on. So unless you have your own logistics sorted out, you're running your business into trouble. And then the customers will not be actually loyal customers. They will become people who would advise others not to use your service. So a big part can be the logistics partners. So if you cannot establish in-house capacity and you have the right partners in your city or country and so on that you can rely on to offer this service to your clients, and they have to be trustworthy because they can always tell you that the customer didn't answer the phone or they didn't deliver and so on. So unless they're really trustworthy and competent in their market, you might need to establish some parts of the logistics in-house. And you have to simulate it and you have to run it. And unless this is well, whatever you spend on the marketing, whatever you spend on the technology actually backfires on your business. So definitely outsourcing logistics can be something for startups at the beginning. However, with very good processes for quality assurance and enforcement along the process.
Right. Yeah, this is where things get very delicate, right? As you were saying.
Yeah, exactly.
We have a question here on Zoom from Amir Rahman. Hi, Hussein. We are an e-commerce platform that sells home improvement and DIY materials. We are currently selling through a single vendor. We want to develop it to a marketplace where we have multiple vendors, but we are worried that they won't be able to do good customer and logistics services. What do you suggest we do? Oh,
yeah.
That's very specific.
Yeah, that's the core of the business. But on the good side, you're selling products that everyone is looking for right now. So everyone wants to make their home better. Now that we stay at home 24/7. But I think it's a process. It's like you're hiring someone to work on your team. So it starts by how do you recruit your vendors? What kind of qualification process do they have? What kind of you examine their business, you understand their capacity, and you make sure that you don't send them business beyond their capacity and so on. And you have very good integration, good relationships with the management so that you can always ensure you're on top of stuff. And then there is also the part about performance management. So doing like regular reviews with those vendors. What kind of achievements did we have together over the past month? Are we meeting our targets or not? If we're meeting our targets good and well, how can we plan for the next period? If we're not, what's happening? Why are the orders dropping? How can we fix that? And so on. So it's a full process from recruitment to performance management. At some point, you need to attract others. At some point, you will need to fire some of the vendors because they're not doing a good job and it's hurting your brand. So it's like you have your own team in-house, but it's actually not just people, it's companies.
Right. Well, that was a very thorough answer. Thank you. Another question, I guess, is related to how do you aim for growth and how do you plan for growth, right? You start obviously, driving sort of, transitioning to the sales you had to turn to e-commerce, but the ultimate objective is to increase sales, right? How do you plan for that growth and what should be milestones to go over?
It depends. Like if you already have a history, so if you have a history, you do have something that you can use to plan for the growth. You need to account for things like seasonality. So if you have a seasonality in your business, or you have something like Mother's Day will have a spike on your sales, or Black Friday and so on, and then you create a momentum, and you always need to capitalize on the momentum. So once you have this momentum, you need to think of how to keep it and how to make this somehow the new normal of your business. So right now with the COVID-19 situation, the e-commerce players, they have a momentum. So they're seeing figures that are around 3x their normal business. How can they keep this after after the quarantine is over. So momentum is very important. Planning of growth is a matter of your own capacity. If you have a supply of products, so supply might always be an issue. So you need to look at your own supply. And in some cases might be an issue, or your actual ability to reach the demand. So you need to look at the different customer segments. Are you fulfilling a significant percentage of the market you're serving? Is it a problem of awareness? Do people need to know more about your brand, or is it a problem of the product assortment and so on? And then you have your growth plan according to where you are, how fast the market is going, how fast the competition is going, what kind of capacity do you have, what kind of budget do you have to spend on the marketing and so on, so that you can plan your growth accordingly. But typically, startups should be measuring their growth like week over week. So it's if you're getting a funding from a VC, it's not, you don't measure your growth like annually, you don't measure it quarterly, you measure it week over week, and in a worst case scenario, it's a month over month. And this puts a lot of pressure, but it's very important to drive the fast growth.
Right, a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
One of the last questions we have for today is the requisites, the prerequisites. A lot of people want to do it, but they don't know what is exactly needed. Do you need to be a registered business, or can you do it with, if you're in the informal economy? Can you do it with only cash on delivery? So what are the kind of prerequisites to really have an e-commerce platform?
So I would categorize the prerequisites somehow into 3 different categories. So content is one thing, because lots of players, they build a technology and so on, and they realize that they don't have the product photos, videos, and descriptions and everything ready. So that's a critical prerequisite. Logistics, we mentioned this, and then comes the system. So there are definitely cash on delivery has been a popular channel in Egypt for the past period, but I think with the current situation, so there's the trend of the contactless delivery. So people would like to lower the exchange of cash. People would like to use things like credit card payment. They would like to use like digital confirmation, so that you don't have to sign papers and so on. So definitely you need to go with credit somehow. You need to have the integrations for the different systems. If you have an SMS gateway that sends notifications to the customers about the order status and so on. If you have integrations with the ERP system to keep your inventory updated, with the CRM and so on. So those are more or less the most common prerequisites you need for e-commerce.
Right. Well, thank you very, very much, Hussein. It's been super thorough, super insightful. I guess you leave us all wanting to go right away and Shopify and establish our own selling platforms. We hope this has been useful for all of you entrepreneurs out there. And thank you so much once again, Hussein.
Thanks a lot, Valentina. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you to everyone tuning in. We'll see you tomorrow for another quarantine sessions. And let's make the best of this time that we spend at home. Have a good night. Bye.
Bye.